Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Danny, and today I'm going to try my hand at a reading vlog. So as you guys are aware, one of my year-long goals is to finish as many series as I start, and in order to accomplish that, I thought I would maybe do some vlogs of me continuing series. So this is just kind of a trial run to figure out if I like the process. I'm just going to pick some series that I enjoy, and I will do a vlog, one book per vlog, so you guys can see kind of my thoughts throughout the book. So yeah. This time we're going to go through Eclipse the Moon, which is the second book in, I can't remember what the series title is, but it is, the first book was Hunt the Stars, which I read last year. I really enjoyed it. It was a really cute sci-fi soap opera romance. So to give you guys a little bit of background information, I don't know a ton about Eclipse the Moon or like where the storyline is going to go, but I do have I think I know which characters we're going to focus on. So in the first book, you focus on Tavi, who is a bounty hunter captain, and she has kind of this ragtag crew of people that she has gathered throughout her life. There has been war going on between two races. So you have the human race, and then you have Pavlovians, who are like an evolved human race. And this war got very bloody and very gruesome, and so the people in Tavi's crew have they have some history and trauma that they're working through. And Tavi is approached by one of the people in one of the Pavlovians, and he asks her to retrieve an object for him, and that means that him and some of his colleagues are going to be on her ship. And then the love story goes on about their way with Tavi and Torin. So throughout that, you also have this very political and dynamic situation between the Pavlovians and the humans, but also some different things that happen in that book. I'm not going to spoil anything, that are very large and high stakes. And that storyline, I believe, is going to be continued into the second book. And I think each book is going to focus on a different set of characters. So the first book focused on Tavi, who's the captain of the ship, and Torin. I'm not going to give you much information about him because I'm not sure how much information is given at the beginning of that book. And then the second book, so Eclipse the Moon, the one that I'm going to be doing in this vlog, I believe is focusing on Key, and who is like the tech guru on board, who I just really loved. One of the things I really enjoyed about the first book was the side characters. The book really focused on everyone that was on the ship, and you got to learn about their little community. So I'm excited to like get back into that. But Key was one of my absolute favorite characters from the first book, and so I'm excited. I'm pretty sure the second book is focusing on Key and her love interest Varro, and so yeah. I don't know. I know that the storyline of what happens in the first book is going to continue into the second book, but I'm not sure what I want to tell you because I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. So I'm excited. I will update you guys in just a minute. I just got back from my walk, and I wanted to update you guys on my progress with Eclipse the Moon. I am currently 20% of the way through, and I'm really enjoying it. I was right that we are following the tech guru from the original book and her love interest, Varro, who's one of the Pavlovians who was on the original ship. So far we have got to see Key be on, so Key is the tech guru, and we've gotten to see her on the ship Starlight, along with Tavi, and I can't remember the original love interest's name. He's a general in the Pavlovian army, or was a general in the Pavlovian army, and so they're still on board, so we're still getting to see like little snippets of them, which I've enjoyed, but we get to see Key and kind of her inner workings. And so far she's discussed how she has shown interest in Varro and he has not reciprocated, and so she's trying to respectfully back off and just be okay with the fact that he doesn't want to be with her. But it's really hard for her whenever she sees Tavi and her. Gosh, I wish I could remember his name. I'll have to look that up for the next update. But whenever she sees them being so happy together, she gets sad because she doesn't have that same thing with herself. And then she talks about how Varro is nice to her, but he's nice to everyone. So she at first thought that he was expressing that he was interested, but then she recognized that he was doing for her what he would do for any of the members of the ship, of the crew. And so she was like, yeah, obviously this isn't for me. So I think there's a little bit of miscommunication going on, because there have just been some things that Varro's done that definitely seem like he's interested in her. We don't get his perspective, at least we haven't so far. So we're just in Key's head, and it seems like he's taken a nap around her, and he has asked her how she's doing. He brings her food whenever he thinks that she's hungry. You find out pretty early on that Varro is meeting with the medic, the crew medic, and Key accidentally runs into them in the gardening area. And the medic essentially tells her that Varro is in pain and that he is skipping out on his med checks. And she talks to Varro about it, trying to get him to open up. And he just says, it's not physical. It's nothing that the medic can help me with. And so I just wish that people would leave me alone. And that's when he ends up taking a nap around her. And I know that the doctor from the first book can feel like emotional pain as well as physical pain. And so I do wonder if Varro is like hiding this want of Key, but for some reason he's holding back. It was said recently, Key said that Varro is not aware that she is interested, which kind of clashes with something she said earlier where she was essentially going after him pretty readily in the beginning, flirting and such. And so I would think that he does know that she likes him, but I don't know. We'll see how everything goes. We do have a little bit of grumpy sunshine going on, although I think that his grumpy is not so much grumpy, it's just subtle, and grumpy to me, it means that you're just kind of a little bit of an asshole. And maybe you have a soft inner side, but he definitely cares for the people around him visibly. Like, he takes care of people. He brings people the sustenance they need. He makes sure that people have breaks when they need it. He makes people talk through their problems. And so I don't think that he is your typical grumpy. But I don't know. I've really enjoyed it so far. Key has decided that she wants to go out onto the station of Bastion, which they're around, and get away from the crew for a little bit, just to clear her head and get away from Varro and be able to kind of come back into herself and come back in the ship fresh. And she tells Tavi. Tavi's okay with it, kind of. She doesn't really want to send Key out to the station by herself, but she understands that Key needs a break. So if you see my cat jump down. So Key goes off on her own and doesn't tell the rest of the crew. And lo and behold, Varro follows her onto the ship. And so that's where we are right now, following this kind of awkward encounter, in the fact that she literally decided to go to the station Bastion, and leave the crew behind because she needed to get away from Varro, and Varro's the one that followed her. So I'm really enjoying it so far. I will update you guys probably in another 20%. And yeah, so that's it. This is update number 2. I just got back from physical therapy, and so that is why I am dressed like this. So the past 2 updates, you guys are getting me in workout clothes, but you know, whatever. It is what it is. I wanted to make sure that I updated you guys though, because I didn't want to forget about a couple of things I want to talk to you about. So I'm still really enjoying the book. It's gotten a little bit more heated. And so in the last update, I talked about how Key wanted to go to Bastion by herself to get away from Varro and kind of clear her head and be able to, I don't know, center herself, kind of. And of course, he followed her. And and I also, one of the main things I wanted to talk to you guys about was the fact that I mentioned that this has the miscommunication trope in it. So I don't read a lot of romance, but I do think that when I've heard people talk about romance books that have miscommunication, they've been more frustrating than this book's miscommunication. So yes, at the beginning of the book, these two characters are having this misunderstanding between the two of them because of the fact that they're not communicating. But each individual type of misunderstanding that's happening in the book is cleared up pretty quickly, because of the fact that they then choose to communicate because something is uncomfortable or doesn't seem right to the characters. And so I don't, like I said, I don't know enough about the romance genre to say like this is the miscommunication trope or there is just miscommunication in the book. So for those of you who are romance readers, maybe you can give me information on the miscommunication trope in greater detail as far as like how far into the narrative does it get? Like, are you like 80% of the way through the book before communication clears, or is it little types of miscommunication throughout the way? I'm sure that there's all types, but so I do like the fact that the characters are being adults in the sense that if something happens, they're not happy about the result, then they talk it out. There are some instances in the beginning where it's not necessarily that something bad has to happen for them to talk. It's more, I think I talked about this where as far as like, and this is beginning of the story, Key believes that Varro does not like her. And so she wants to be a good friend to him, but she is constantly wrapped up in her own feelings and she feels that she's not being fair to him. So that's one of the reasons that she went to Bastion. And so that miscommunication was the one that lasted the longest, because it was essentially her holding all of that in, so she could be a better friend to him. So it wasn't like an immediate, like, this was not cool, like this thing happened, this was not cool, I'm going to hold it in. It was, if things like that happened where there was an event that happened that one of them didn't agree with or got mad at, they would talk it out at that point in time. But it was just that I have feelings for you, but I don't think you have feelings for me thing that kind of lasted a while. And not even a while. I'm 42% of the way in, and they both now understand that the other person likes each other. So, and we've already had like, we haven't had any spice by any means, but like we've had some longing and some really cute moments. One of the things that you learn in the first book is that Pavlovians, which is the other race, can communicate telepathically. And is that the word? Telepathically? Communicate brain to brain. I'm pretty sure that's the right word. And so some of the moments between them recently have been really sweet because they are very strictly just between them. And so there's really no question as far as motives go, because one of the things that kind of goes, well, I don't want to say that. So I'll just leave it at that. As far as like, I feel like both are being very genuine because of the fact that they are by themselves. And yeah, some crazy stuff has happened as far as the plot goes. One of the reasons that I really have enjoyed these books, the first one and this and what I've read of this one, is the fact that they're action-packed on top of having the romance. It almost reminds me of Paladin's Grace, which I really liked recently. So like the T. Kingfisher books, but with the exception of this is very, well, first off, it's sci-fi, not fantasy, but this is very cutesy. Like, yes, there are real world things going on and very high stakes in the real world things, but it's not a gritty world. It's a very high tech world and some really cool things happen. There's a fashion show that recently happened in the book that was fascinating, how they described like the outfits that were in this fashion show. And yeah, so it has the same elements of Paladin's Grace as far as like you have this world and the fantasy or the romance is just happening within this world. And I guess I like those types of romances. I like the fact that we have a romance going on, but at the same time we have more to focus on in the world. There is a very large part of the story that you can focus on that's not just the romance. I'm trying to think of a percentage I would give it. So with Paladin's Grace, I would say the romance is probably, I'd say that's probably 60-40. So romance would be the 40% and the storyline would be the 60%. Whereas with Hunt the Stars and with Eclipse the Moon, I would say the romance versus the storyline is probably more 50-50. If not even 60-40, with romance being the 60 and the storyline being the 40. But I still really enjoy that aspect of it. Another thing I really enjoy about this book, and I'm not going to talk too much about the plot, but there is a plot line that you find out in the first book that is followed through into the second book. And once again, that's something that's very similar to Paladin's Grace. And I really enjoy the fact that we have this world that we're building upon, that we've already been in. And yes, we're starting with a brand new couple, but we're continuing on the same story. So I've really enjoyed that aspect of it as well. I really, really love Key. I think this, I don't know how they're going to top this book, because I know that there's a third one, Capture the Sun. And I don't know how they're going to top this couple, because I think Key and Varro's relationship has been, I have enjoyed it more than Tavi and Tyrion. Tyrion? I told you guys I was going to figure out what his name was, and they've said it a couple of times. Tyrion? And I don't remember what it is. But the general for the Vavlovian army, who is Tavi's love interest in the first book. I really enjoyed their romance. I thought it was great. But Key is such a sweet character. So the two storylines, so Hunt the Stars, which is the first book, you have Tavi, who is the captain, who is kind of this badass female. And she was really fun to read about. But Key is badass in her own way, in the sense that she's really good with technology, but she has that aspect that Tavi didn't have, where she's very petite, she's not very sporty, she's not very fit. I mean, I shouldn't say she's not fit, but she's just not athletic. I guess I'll say that. And so there have been some moments in this book that she's a little bit more vulnerable, and she's constantly in her head justifying herself and the fact that she has her own strengths and she doesn't have to be everything. She can be good at what she is good at, and it's perfectly fine. I really enjoyed that perspective of her. And then Varro, I really like, well, I like all the Vavlovians that we've been in, and we're not in their heads, but like, I like all of the Vavlovian perspectives. The general in the first book, and Varro in this one, I really enjoy they're very reserved. And we learned that there's a reason for Varro being reserved in this book, which once again, I won't spoil the plot for you guys, because I just think it's a really fun part of his character. I will say that you learn in the first book, and this isn't like a huge plot killer whatsoever, you learn that the Vavlovians have different abilities. So like, every one of them can do certain things, but they are gifted in certain areas. Just like humans have their own gifts, Key is very gifted in technology. But Vavlovians have like biological things that they are good at. So yeah, I think that's a really interesting dynamic that they've introduced to this. Anyway, I've been talking at you guys forever. So this was my update. I'll talk to you guys again around 60%. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it so far. This is update number 3. I am just out of the shower, so I apologize for my wet hair, but I guess you're just getting a full spectrum of Danni throughout this vlog. I'm 70% of the way into the book and I'm still really enjoying it. And I have a few things I want to talk to you guys about regarding the relationship and the two different races and some of the things that I've seen. So as I've talked about, the love interests in this story are from different races. You have the Vavlovians and humans. And if I remember correctly from the first book, and I don't know if I said this in the previous update, Vavlovians are like an evolved form of human. And they have special abilities, which I know I talked about their telepathy or telepathy. There's a weird pronunciation of that. Anyway, so one of the things I've really appreciated about these books is the fact that you have two separate people. Once again, I don't read a lot of romance, but I do hear a lot of people talk about romance and how a lot of the relationships are not necessarily healthy ones. And I do feel like this series, this book, has portrayed the relationship between two different types of peoples, and the fact that they have two different types of cultures. They have, obviously in this world, they have vastly different abilities, and different belief systems, things like that. And they are very respectful of each other's way of life. And it's not always easy. There are some miscommunication things, which I've already talked about. And there are certain boundaries that they set, or expectations that they have that the other might not meet because of cultural things or beliefs or, things of that nature. But the author does a really good job of having those be, bumps along the way, but also the characters taking that in stride and not compromising themselves in order to be with this person. I don't know, I've really enjoyed that aspect. Specifically, I'm not gonna, no spoilers or anything, but one of the things that you learn about in the first book is Vavlovians have this very strong sense of honor, and it's very different. Their words have vast meaning to them, and it causes some oddities in the way that the Vavlovians on the ship, which are Varro and Torin, I did check, the love interest from the first book is Torin, and then there are some other Vavlovians on the ship as well, but you get to see the dynamic of the humans and the Vavlovians and this aspect of honor that the Vavlovians have that humans don't understand. And so throughout this process, with the love interests, but also with the other members on the crew, they're constantly learning about the other people's culture and how it affects their day-to-day lives, what they can do to make each other more comfortable. I've just really enjoyed that aspect of this book. Also, another thing I want to talk about is just a really cute facet that I love about Key. And Key is, I've talked about her as far as her being sweet and her being petite and her being not necessarily the strongest physically, but she's very smart, very tech savvy. But she is a girl after my own heart. She absolutely loves cookies, and they keep bringing that into the story. And Varro will bake cookies for her, or when they're on the station, he will buy cookies for her. And the way that she describes them, I think the bakery that they went to on Bastion had cookies that were as big as her face, and she was just so excited about them. Her favorite are snickerdoodles. And I just think that I think I talked about this whenever I originally talked about Hunt the Stars. Hunt the Stars also talks a lot about food and how food is, and it probably comes back to that cultural aspect where food is intertwined in a lot of people's culture, and a lot of the family components. In the first book, it was more about gathering around the table and all eating together and having that sense of community. And in this book, they've kind of taken that, and it's not as heavily influenced by food. The second book isn't, but I still think that they sprinkle it in when they talk about her cookies, and then they also talk about they have meal bars that they're eating, which brings me to my next thing I want to talk to you guys about. This will probably be my last thing before I stop, because I know last time I talked forever. So Key learns about a specific ability of Varro's. And we know from the beginning that Varro takes care of people on the ship. He learns about what people need, and he is very observant about the people in the crew and is considered very considerate. And Key is known to be very sweet, but she also gets very wrapped up in her technology. And so she isn't necessarily known as a caretaker. She's known as someone who loves very deeply and, like I said, is a very sweet person and a very kind person, but she doesn't necessarily notice enough to take care of those around her, or she's not present enough a lot of the time to take care of the needs of those around her. And she finds out that Varro's ability, which I'm not going to tell you guys about, but his like special ability that he has over the other Pavlovians, like the one that makes him kind of unique, costs him calories. Like in order to use his ability, it depletes his energy. And so on part of the mission that they're on right now, which once again, I'm not going to spoil the plot or anything, but just this little bit, she keeps pulling out these meal bars as he uses her ability to help with this mission. And she, like, I mean, they're like spies, so they're like sneaking around. They're not wearing a lot of clothing. I mean, they're clothed, but it's not like they're walking around naked, but they're not wearing, you know, they're not carrying backpacks or anything like that. And so he's like, where are you getting all of these meal bars at? And she just simply says to him, like, well, you're always taking care of me. I know that, you know, whenever you use your skill that it depletes you, and I just wanted to do something to take care of you. And I just thought that was a really sweet moment for her. Not necessarily that it's a growth of character, but the fact that she is kind of a person that gets wrapped up in what she's doing and sometimes forgets about those who are around her, for her to make him her person that she will go that extra mile for, I just think is a really sweet moment in their relationship. So the next time I update you guys, it will be at the end of the book, and we will wrap up from there. So far, so like I said, I'm about 70% of the way through, and I'm between a 4 and a 5 star right now. I'm not sure, but we'll see how it ends. But I've really enjoyed this book. It's a lot of fun. I love the romance, and if I haven't said this already, it is definitely a slow burn romance. So we're just now, even at 70%, like there's been not really a lot of spice. It's just been very, I don't want to call it surface level because it's still intimate to them, but they're definitely taking their time. So anyway, I'll see you guys in just a minute. So last update, I did finish the book, and I think I'm gonna rate it 5 stars. I really enjoyed the romance in this book. I really enjoyed the backstory that we're getting, or not backstory, but the continuation of the storyline from the first book. One thing I do think, so to kind of give like an overview of the whole series, or not the whole series, but the first book and the second book, I do think I liked the first book better in the sense that you focused on more characters. So in the first book, it's really setting up the world, it's setting up the characters that are on the ship, and like all of the different side characters, and you're also learning about the fact that there are 2 separate races. You have the Pavlovians, who are very different than the humans in certain ways, but very similar in other ways. And so I think that the first book had a little bit more of outside the relationship, which lent itself to the story, or to this story, well, in the sense that we only got to really focus on Key and Varro because of the fact that a lot of the story happens outside the ship when it is just those 2 characters. So I don't think that this book neglected the other characters. It was just a different type of story, or a different setup of story. And so I do think I enjoyed that aspect of the first book better. However, I think as far as the couples go, I think that this is my favorite couple so far, and I don't know how they're going to beat it because I just absolutely love Key. I love the technology guru aspect of her, and I loved her story arc in kind of finding herself and realizing her faults, but also realizing her strengths, and how that built into the relationship with Varro, as well as getting to see kind of behind Varro's shell. I'm pretty sure I already said this, but this is definitely one, you're getting one perspective throughout the entire book. So the first book, I don't remember if you ever get into Torrhen's head, or if it's all in Tavi's head. I think it's all in Tavi's head, which is the captain of the ship. So the female love interest. And then in this book, you're in Key's head, which is the female love interest of the couple. And we did get a very subtle hint. I'm not sure if it's going to pan out or not at the very end of this book, that we are going to be seeing Lily from the first book, which she was not in the second book. And I think that Lily might be the person that we are in her perspective for the third book, because they mention Lily and I think it's Nilo, which was a character from the first book. And so I'm excited to get to another couple, and the storyline, the through line, has gotten even more intense. So at the end of each book, you have a resolution to the problem at hand. I'll say it that way. But there is a global issue that is happening in all three books that we are trying to navigate. And so I'm excited to see like the culmination. I'm pretty sure Capture the Sun is the last book in the series, unless they're going to continue and do more books. I'm not sure. So I'm excited to see kind of the culmination, the finale of the through line story. The kind of, it's not a mystery, but like it's very high stakes. That is something that I've liked about these books, is the situations that the characters have gotten into are very high stakes, and they feel very, I don't want to say threatening, but like they feel very realistic. And I don't even know if I should use the word realistic, because it's a sci-fi, so it's clearly not real, but I don't know. I have enjoyed the intensity of the story, and the political dynamics that are happening in the storyline, and the discussion of government and corruption, and the little guy like trying to, you know, stick up for their rights and do the right thing, even though they know that they're kind of a pawn. I've enjoyed that discussion throughout these books as well. So I really like this. If you guys do like romances, I will say that this is definitely a slow burn. There's not a lot of spice. There is some, but it happens at the end of the book, so it's not like going to be, you know, interwoven throughout the storyline. It was very much like 70% and beyond. And really it wasn't a ton of it. It was really clustered in like little snippets. So that if you're a romance and if you are a romance reader and you are looking for something that has a little spice but that isn't throughout the entire book, this would be for you. I also just think that this is a really cute, it's just cute and fun and lighthearted, even though you do have high stakes. I didn't ever feel like depleted by reading this book. It's very light. So I had a lot of fun with this. I hope you guys had fun with this vlog. I think I'm going to continue this series, and because of the fact that this was part of a series, and one of my goals is to continue series this year, so I think I'm going to pick up some books throughout that I'm going to vlog that are just continuations of series. I think it's been fun. So let me know if you guys like that idea in the comments down below, or if you would prefer to see like first books in a series. Yeah. I'm interested in your thoughts. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you have a lovely evening, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.